All right, welcome to episode 21 of the Long Toss here on the Walkoff. I have to admit, I feel kind of stupid right now. I got a message on Instagram 3 days ago from Amanda who said, why don't we highlight a baseball player to wear each episode number? And I think that's a really great idea. The reason we don't is because we're dumb and we never thought of it. So we're starting today. It's episode 21, and we're going with Roberto Clemente, wore 21 with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Some other notable names: Roger Clemens wore 21 with the Blue Jays and the Red Sox, I believe. And Sammy Sosa also wore number 21. So we have a poll up now in the live chat. If you're watching, you can get your votes in, but I've already decided it's Roberto Clemente, so there. Okay, we got a lot to talk to today. We're going to recap the Blue Jays series against the Yankees. Of course, today's come from behind victory to end that series. We're going to preview the White Sox. We're going to have first impressions of Gabriel Moreno's first week in the Bigs. The Blue Jays bullpen looks rough as of late. We're going to do a trust check on the arms in the bullpen. Then Anthony Rendon of the Angels had season-ending wrist surgery. So with that in mind, we're going to talk bad contracts for a little bit. Then we're going to get into Home Run Derby nominees. So this is going to be our dream selections for the 2022 MLB Home Run Derby on July 18th. Baseballs continue to be a problem. We have some funny incidents from around the league and some not so funny ones. So that's the show notes for today. Full cast here for the roundtable, which is awesome. Scott is away. He was actually in Toronto this weekend for that Yankees series, so he's not going to make it today. But we do have Iron Man and Iron Lady, Joel and Jen. Nice to see both of you. Joel, how many times did you see Top Gun this week?
I haven't been able to see it anymore lately. I've just been so busy, which is, I'm sorry. I feel like I've let Tom down. I should frame him better.
So disappointing. That's all right. Jen, how many times have you seen Top Gun? 0.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I have no faith in this. I have no faith in me.
I've let Tom down.
Joel's seen it enough for all of us.
Joel's seen it enough for all of us. That's absolutely true. Funny story. Scott texted Joel and I in a group chat this week and was like, just heading in right now to see Top Gun. And I think Joel must have known the runtime of this movie because Joel says, well, how was it? Literally, Scott's like, I'm just walking out of the theater now. So Joel is much of a fanatic as fanatics get.
Oh, I'm not. That didn't happen.
All right, we'll move on from there. Speaking of fanatics, new face to the show, Pat McDonald. Scott has your description as comedian and Blue Jays fanatic. So we're excited to talk ball with you. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Joined again, one of the fan favorites, Garth Orgy. How you doing?
I'm a hell of a lot better than I was about 2.5 hours ago.
I'll give you that. I will agree with you there. And Rick from Rick Talks Baseball on TikTok. I guess we're going to preview the White Sox this week, or what, eh?
Yep. Back at it again.
Love it. Okay, so let's shout out to our Patreon, patreon.com/thewalkoffpodcast. So thank you to David, Abraham, Michael, Sarah, John, Simon, Rashid, Joshua, Jeremy, Ian, and Dunedin Bob for supporting us on Patreon. $4 a month gets you access to all of Scott and my's baseball movie reviews. So we've done Bull Durham, Mr. Baseball, Major League, Moneyball, and now Field of Dreams. Up next, I believe we are doing the Battered Bastards of Baseball. So really interesting documentary on Netflix. If you haven't seen it yet, highly recommend it. But that movie review will be up shortly. Also want to say big thanks to our presenting sponsor of Long Toss, Oh My Apparel, Out Hustle My Yesterday. So that is Team Oh My, and Team Oh My is partnering with the Walkoff to produce some merch. So that's cool. If you're new to the show, if you're not new to the show, you may have heard us say bad tacos before. So bad tacos is our euphemism for injuries when we don't want to jinx someone. When we speculate, maybe Ryu experiences some bad tacos this year. Now you can't blame us when he gets Tommy John surgery. So with that in mind, we're going to do a bad taco piece of merch for this show. So how this is going to work is we need everybody in the Discord, watching now, following us on Instagram, wherever you may be, draw a picture of a badass taco and submit it to us. And if we like your design of a badass taco the most, that is going to be the design for our first piece of merch with Team Oh My. So whether you want a t-shirt, a hoodie, a coffee mug, whatever, we're going to do it through pre-sales. So from now until probably start of July, we're going to receive submissions for this bad taco image. And then we're going to run pre-sales up until the All-Star game. So that is our partnership with Team Oh My. We have our discount code now. So if you go to teamomai.com, you check out their gear that they have for sale and enter Walkoff at checkout. You get a 14% discount. So I don't know why 14%. We're not favorites enough to get the full 15, but here we are. teamomai.com or at omai_apparel on Instagram. Okay, let's get into it now. Blue Jays down 8-3 with the help of some big swings, just like we always do. Climb back and manage to win today, 10-9. Still a disappointing series against those Yankees, who turns out are just a really good team. We were in denial for most of the April and May, touting their soft schedule, but kudos to them. They continued to take care of business. We had a bit of a soft schedule the last 2 weeks, and well, we went 6-4 against those quote-unquote bad teams. So let's do a quick temperature check on these Blue Jays after the series against the Yankees. Joel, let's start with you. What do you think of today's game? What were the key takeaways that you feel encouraged by? What continues to be the biggest source of your anxiety with this team?
We were all texting, and I think when Gurriel hit that home run, I wrote, it feels like in the movies when the hero's dead and the girl comes and kisses him, and all of a sudden his heart starts beating again. Like that's, I was like down there. I was like, how, where are we? 0-3 in this series was looking really, really rough. And way to win one and make it feel like you won two, but you didn't. You can't just because one win feels really, really good doesn't mean you didn't go 1-2 against a team that really at one point just didn't look like they had any weakness, right? The lineup looks great. Their defense is firing on all cylinders. They're running what seems to be the old 4 Cy Young candidate, 4.5 Cy Young candidate pitching rotation. That'll get you a record amount of wins at this point in the series. So, but at least we get to come out on a nice emotional high, and first place might be, a dream at this point, but we're still really in it. We're in a great, if you just remove the Yankees from baseball, we would be super optimistic about where we are at this point in the season. I would think we would all say that. So what is you said, what was that last question?
What's your
where's my highest
biggest
point
source of anxiety with this team?
Okay. Still, I've had that constant one of like, I think the lineup's a little strange with, I hate George Springer solo homers. So another one today, but that wasn't because anyways. But bullpen's scary when like the league seems to be this 100-mile-an-hour. You see those bullpens that just, the Yankees like 5th option is coming out there checking 99, and we seem like we're definitely more of a, that's a power bullpen, and we're more of a situational bullpen, right? And it's kind of scary when those situational guys don't pan out in certain moments. So,
Jen, how are you feeling about this team?
If we put today aside, right? I was listening at the end of the game yesterday, and I think it was Ben Nicholson-Smith who said, and I'm almost quoting verbatim here, that the Jays offense was overmatched by Yankees pitching. And I thought, well, true, they were also outpitched. Like the Jays pitching did not stand up in the first 2 games, right? So the Jays, weren't hitting against the Yankees very well, and their pitching, particularly the bullpen, didn't stand up. So, those are 2 things. Those are my 2 takeaways from this series, just in terms of these 2 teams going head to head, right? Today's win was fantastic in the sense that, they talk in professional sports about, those emotional wins come from behind and how that can be a momentum builder. And whether or not that proves to be true, we'll obviously see over the next week. But it would be fantastic if that was something that sort of lit a fire. I guess momentum is only as good as how somebody pitches in a particular game too, right? So I agree with Joel that the pitching, in particular the bullpen, is still a concern. And when you look at the numbers, again, if you go back to the beginning of the season before anybody had even played a game, the Jays were, Fangraphs odds-on favorites to win the AL East, right? 44% chance, 92.4 projected wins. The Yankees had a 34.9% chance of winning the division, with 91.1 wins. If you take a look at where things are today, the Yankees are projected to win 104 games, 94.5% likelihood of winning the division. What's interesting is that the Jays, they're still projected to win like the same number of games as they were at the beginning of the season per Fangraphs, right? So as much as it feels relatively underwhelming, the Jays are performing to expectation at this point. It's the Yankees that are far exceeding expectation. And so what do you do with that? You don't. So I think right now my concern would be the Rays and the Red Sox and holding on to, home field for the wild card.
Well, Rays and Red Sox, we've got 3 against the Red Sox starting June 27th, and that series is followed by 5 against the Rays. So, yeah, that's a great point. The Yankees seem to be, barring catastrophic collapse, untouchable at the top of this AL East. But getting that number 4 seed in the playoffs is still home field advantage in the first round, right? So. Garth, how are you feeling?
I'm worried about our pitching at the moment. Like this series,
the starters or the bullpen or all of it?
Well, both. Ryu being gone, like Ross Stripling, God bless him, but he is so much more important to us as a long person in the bullpen, especially now that Pearson looks like he's probably gone for a little bit. He hurt himself today after 2 pitches in AAA.
I didn't see that.
So I love Ross Stripling. I think he's been one of our best pitchers this year, but he's more suited to a long bullpen role for when guys like Kikuchi today shit the bed. And we have 3 starters right now.
Mm-hmm.
We do. Kikuchi, I don't know if a fastball bullied him in high school or something, and he's terrified of fastballs. But he, it's not even just me being, a grumpy fan about it. Siddle talked about it after the game. He has a great arm, and I don't know what he needs to do to trust it, but they have to hammer it into his brain that throwing 65% fastballs is not a bad thing for him. And that slider is just getting, even his outs that he gets on the slider are hard. Warning track, 103 mile an hour off the bat outs. So, offense, I'm not worried. These guys they've been rolling. And, they ran into a couple of tough games against the Yankees, but so it's literally every other team that's played them this year. You know, when you have you're going up against a guy that could win the Cy Young every game in a series, that's tough. Like Joel was saying, when you go get into their bullpen, like you can knock out their starter in the fourth inning, big deal. You have to deal with guys that are just going to throw 100 miles an hour, and all of them seem to have like this devastating breaking ball to go with it. So, my concern, pitching. My takeaway is offense is fine. Obviously, you know, we put up 10 on the Yankees today. We're going to do that against a lot of teams this year. I'm not worried about that. But yeah, pitching. Atkins needs to get on the phone immediately.
Pat, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I agree completely with what Garth is saying. I have Baseball Reference up. And just before you said it, I was looking at the pitching staff, and you're correct. We have 3 good, healthy starting pitchers. So I do want to very quickly speak to today's game specifically.
Okay.
The Jays' bats were going, but overall, I just didn't feel like they played particularly well. They didn't necessarily play poorly. But I will say this. I was watching half watching the game, doing other stuff around the house. But when Gurriel was up, I just had a feeling something was going to happen. And of course, he hit the home run. And today's game, I don't know if any of you agree with me, felt a lot to me so far as kind of the vibes and emotions, a lot like the Friday of the August long weekend last year against the Oakland A's, when they came back, Marcus Semien then hit a walk-off home run, I believe. So that was kind of the vibe I got from today, and I'm hopeful they'll play the rest of this season the way they did the last season. And I concur with the sneeze as well. I agree. But yeah, they need lefty bats. The bullpen, I don't really foresee being a problem. I agree. You know, there's a lot more finesse in our bullpen than power as compared to, say, the Yankees and maybe some other teams. But the bullpen, I don't foresee as being a very large issue. They need 2 starting pitchers and a left-handed bat. Because I agree, Stripling needs to be your long man, especially with Pearson going down today. So, I mean, they need to find some expiring contracts, and will they catch the Yankees in the standings? Who knows? I mean, we've dealt with a bunch of injuries. Maybe they will as well, or maybe they'll simply decline. But I think that really needs to be the focus right now for the Jays.
Rick, I mean, as a White Sox fan, what is your feeling as we're about to lock horns this week? Are you optimistic? I know you're frustrated by your own team, but do you feel like you're catching the Blue Jays when they're down, or is this a team that you think is like kind of on the precipice of starting another hot streak?
I mean, we play fairly better at home than we do on the road, but I still think that the Blue Jays just are outperforming the White Sox. So again, I see them taking 2 or 3, if not all 3. I mean, White Sox do pretty well against left-handed pitchers, and there's no left-handed pitcher going. Kikuchi's the only one, and they won't see him this series. So I think the Blue Jays stand a fair shot of taking at least 2 out of 3. Plus, can we talk about how hot Vlad's been lately? Through June, he's played in all 18 games, 23 for his last 74, 10 extra base hits. He's got 8 home runs and is averaging an RBI a game. So,
yes,
let's not forget that.
very. I mean, you're coming to the right channel to highlight how hot Vlad has been lately. We've been kind of keeping an eye on this fun contest between Vladdy and Romano to see who would lead this race between Romano saves and Vladdy home runs, and it is tied up at 17 as of today after Romano seemed like he was running away with it. But, I mean, I think this was his first save opportunity in all of June, so
Wow.
a couple blowout games, or a couple weeks worth of blowout games will do that to you. So, okay, Vladdy is hot. Kind of a scary moment there, seeing him dive for that ball today in the 8th inning. My heart was in my throat, but it seemed like he was okay. I guess we'll see, hopefully, by tomorrow, if there's any lingering effects or any strain there. But hopefully everything's good there. Blue Jays. I just want to point this out. We did talk about this on Friday's episode of the podcast, but then I forgot to turn my microphone on, so nobody got to see it. So the Blue Jays have played 37 games against teams with a winning record. Okay, so 18.5 would be even. How many wins do you think this team has against teams with a winning record? Just give me a number, quick. Joel, Jen, quit looking it up. Joel, how many wins does this team have against teams with a winning record?
22.
Jen?
16.
Pat?
15.
15. Garth?
I hope I'm wrong.
I 19.
And Rick, what do you got?
Go with the old 21.
All right, so it's actually 17. We're 17-20 against teams with a winning record. When I first saw this, my eyes popped out of my head because it felt like we spent the first 2 months of the season ragging on those Yankees for inflating their record with wins against bad teams. But turns out the Blue Jays are pretty much doing the same thing. The Yankees, meanwhile, despite playing fewer games against teams with a winning record, are 20-8 versus teams with a winning record. So they do have a lot of wins against bad teams, but they also have a lot of wins against good teams. So the Yankees are just good. I also want to point out the Baltimore Orioles are also, I think, better than we give them credit for.
Are they like 4 games back of Boston now? Like they're not far from Boston.
They are 6.5 back of Boston.
Yeah, okay, well, still, it's better than most of us thought they would be. So.
Yeah, I mean, they split the series with us. As Connor points out in the YouTube chat, they took 2 out of 3 against the Rays this weekend. So if we look at the standings for the MLB, the Baltimore Orioles are right in the middle of the pack. They are around 17th, 18th place in the MLB right now, if I'm looking at that correctly. And they play in the AL East.
And honestly, like they have like 4 or 5 guys in the upper minors that could be on this team next year.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. I
they're
think
going to
they
be
could
good
be
soon.
not necessarily a contender, but I think they could be feisty for a wild card spot come 2023. So those pesky Orioles aren't going away. All right, let's pivot from that now and preview this series against the White Sox. So we are in Chicago. Tomorrow, Monday's game, we have Barrios versus Lynn. Then we have Gossman versus Cease and Stripling versus Giolito. I think it was Garth touched on it right off the top here. Stripling is, I mean, we've got to be grateful for what he's done as a starting pitcher, but it's just such a double whammy of he doesn't give us a full 6 innings either. So, like, every time he takes the mound, we deplete our bullpen, and then our best tool to fill in the bullpen is Stripling, and he can't do it. So, it's rough. And then you mix in a Kikuchi 50-50 chance at having a short outing as well. And then, I mean, Gossman and Barrios are no guarantees at this point to go 6-7 innings even themselves. So, how badly does this team need to make a trade? Is this, I mean, Ryu's out with Tommy John, right? We thought maybe Nate Pearson would get close. That's done. I think Nate Pearson is going to be done for a long time at this point. Should we talk trades? Joel, what do you think? Is there a trade to be made? Is it too early to go out and get a starting pitcher, or is that a panic move?
Well, like look at innings that you have to fill, right? Like Ryu goes down. How many innings did you expect him to fill out for the remainder of the season? 90. Let's say you dreamed of 90 from this point on, right? What did you hope Pearson would give you? Maybe at some point come up and maybe over the last 2 months of the season give you 25 in a dream situation, right? So it's just like you kind of got to look at all the innings that you're losing here and then understand that you have to find those, like, we've already, gone down to the AAA quite a bit to try to fill. Thomas Hatch might be able to come up and give you a few innings here and there, but you're probably going to have to go somewhere. And there's options down in AAA that you can bundle together to try to fill what you've lost, because you have lost 110 innings, like 110 innings that you need to fill just in 2 players. So you're going to probably have to go outside, find somebody to make that trade with.
I agree. Yeah. What running Stripling out there every 5 days and then having to piggyback, 4 or 5 innings onto those games out of the bullpen just isn't sustainable, right? That can't be done, especially when you have Kikuchi, who is sometimes getting pulled after 2 innings or whatever the case might be. That's really taxing on the bullpen, and they're about to lose a reliever tomorrow, right?
Is that the roster compression is tomorrow?
Yeah, that's tomorrow. So, I think that they have to get a starter. I'd still like to see the bullpen be improved in some fashion. Just looking at how the bullpen is stacking up versus the rest of the league. But for sure, if you get a legitimate starter to be able to take Stripling's role and then have Stripling in the bullpen, that does help with both problems.
Yeah, I agree completely with you. I view Ross Stripling right now. What he's been doing is great. He's been asked to step up.
Absolutely.
For the most part, he's done his part and then some. But I would just call him duct tape right now. That would be my nickname for him. He's temporarily solving a problem, but you need to go out and you need to pick up at least 1, but in my opinion, 2 expiring contracts. I don't know who those players are. I have a 4-year-old son, so I don't get to watch as much baseball as I would like. But you can't just patchwork things and expect to succeed deep into the playoffs with, running out of bullpen pitching day or something like that. So you need to pick up at least. I think you need 2, because usually I would say 1, but you look at what happened with Pearson, Ryu, etc. Injuries will pile up, and if the person you pick up either gets injured or another starter gets injured, you're back to square one and you're in trouble going against upper echelon teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's nail on the head there. It's a tough spot to be in. I don't really know what level of price are we willing to pay for starting pitching in return. Like, do you think this team, Garth, and we'll throw this to you, do you think this team should be out there looking for a low-end, back-of-the-rotation guy that we only maybe have to give up some low-level prospects for? Or is this the kind of thing that maybe we should be looking at, like a number 3 level guy or higher than that? Are we able, or do we have any flexibility to move an everyday player off of this team to get something real in return?
Yeah, we do. I mean, what are we playing for this year? Are we playing to be happy with a wild card? I mean, there's guys out there that can make legitimate differences to our team right now. You have Frankie Montas just wasting away in Oakland. You have Luis Castillo doing the same in Cincinnati. I mean, will these guys cost some? Yeah. I mean, Montas still has another year after this one. And I think Castillo has 2 years of ARB left. But I mean, yeah, why not? Go for a solid pitcher, like a number 2 or a number 3. We have a pretty good farm system right now. We have some pieces that teams would be interested in. We also have 2 extra picks in the draft coming up. So that could help replenish our our farm system again. I don't think we're going to go and look for. We don't need another Kikuchi as another number 5. We need a guy that can go out there that we feel comfortable with. And yeah, just going out and getting some bottom of the barrel starter, like some innings eater who might not even eat innings for you. I just don't see the point of doing that. We're a solid team. We have championship ambitions. Let's act like it. Back in, look at what happened when we got David Price.
Mm-hmm.
The team, it completely changed the dynamic of the team. Not because he was a great pitcher for us, but it just showed everybody hey, we're going for it. We got a top of the line starter. Let's do this. And I think we should do that again this year.
Well, and if you can do that, if you can get somebody who has a bit of term, yes, you're paying a higher price, but it solves the problem of next year because Ryu is also not probably pitching next year either.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Garth, just to kind of speak to, because I'm going to say something that may ruffle feathers. I don't know. So you brought up the David Price trade. I remember when they got Tulowitzki. I'd already had the tickets. I happened to be at his first game as a Blue Jay. He hit a double and then a home run, and it was super exciting. When the Jays traded for him, many people, Blue Jays fans, I recall complaining about how much we had to give up. And my question, which is rhetorical, would be, how many of those guys are making an impact right now in the major leagues? I think Jeff Hoffman is pitching okay out of the bullpen, last I checked. Aside from that, you didn't lose out on anything. So the Blue Jays also have, so I'm not against trading prospects for a legit like win now move, like a starting pitcher. Another thing to consider, the Blue Jays have 3 exceptional catchers on their major league roster. So I don't want to get rid of any of those guys. I like them all. But if it's to address a greater need, I mean, that's a chance you take, because it's like you said, like, are we trying to get into the playoffs and cross our fingers, or do you want to go in hot as a favorite with a deep starting rotation and bullpen?
Anything you want to add there, Joel?
Well, I was going to compare it to Barrios last year and giving up Simeon Woods Richardson and Austin Martin.
Just pulling up their stats right now.
Right. Like, I'm not saying that we can project of what, like, that's still a lot of career to happen for those 2 guys. But I'm just saying that they were willing to make the move last year, bring in a guy who had a year left in arbitration, sign him long term. And so I feel like that move is very much within this organization. So we saw literally around, in a little bit of time, the 1-year anniversary of when we got Barrios. So I feel like there's a lot of targets to go after that is like a significant arm, because we need to fill, like Jen said, it's not just the innings this year, it's the innings next year. And you put a lot of expectation on what Ryu is going to fill for you, and that's gone now. So that's a big hole to fill. And we want to be, we're playing to win the World Series this year, right? So it's you have to be able to not just be competitive through the regular season, but you got to be able to throw the 3 best guys out there for a short series. And it's going to be Manoah, it's going to be most likely Gosman, but if you can make a trade for a guy like Montas and he's your 3rd guy going, right? Like,
yeah,
it's you're playing for right now and you're playing for October. So I feel like that move is probably right around the corner.
Just to highlight the prospects we gave up for Barrios, Austin Martin, Simeon Woods Richardson, both playing in Double-A with the Twins right now. So Simeon Woods has a decent whip, 1.132. He's throwing about 3-1 strikeouts to walks, and has an ERA just under 4. So he's doing all right. Not lighting the world on fire, but that's decent numbers from him. Austin Martin, however, this one I was really sad about when we traded Austin Martin. The potential I saw for him was quite high. In Double-A this year, though, he's hitting .235 for a batting average, slugging percentage .309, and just 1 home run in 53 games. So
it's a big difference between right now we need Major League Baseball players playing Major League Baseball, and we can give up a little bit on the future and 2-3 years of development because we need the wins now. And then the wins next year.
And this is the thing with prospects, right? Prospects will break your heart every time.
That's what I keep saying, right?
There are no guarantees.
Yeah, so I was going to say this.
Gotta play for what is right now instead of what could be.
And especially in baseball. I mean, I'm a basketball fan, and you look at the NBA draft. Most of your first rounders, you probably already know this, they're going to have some sort of impact in the NBA. The next season. Baseball, it could be 5 years. You could be playing in the minors for 10 years, never make it, be a first rounder, right? So I think it's a risk worth taking given the current makeup of this team.
Look at last year's Super Bowl champion. They don't care about draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
The LA Rams do not give a shit about draft picks. They've traded all of them for the next 5 years, but they got a Super Bowl out of it. So
Yep,
It's
exactly. It's worth it.
it's like, just to stick with the fantasy football analogy, if you've ever joined like a fantasy football or baseball league or whatever, and it's like year one and it's a dynasty league, right? So it's like everybody's drafting for the future and whatever. Meanwhile, you're getting like these old guys who, the dynasty rating on them is low, but then the league folds after 2 seasons anyways, and you've got 2 championships because everyone's drafting rookies that never help their team out, right? So okay, so let's talk who's tradable on this team. Scott and I talked about this Friday again on the lost episode. It's funny that tonight he was the catalyst that started the comeback, but Lourdes Gurriel Jr., our corner outfielders, seem to be the two most movable pieces, although both would hurt to see go, as well as Alejandro Kirk. I've said since the start of this season, Alejandro Kirk, I hope he has a great start to the season, and I hope he turns into a phenomenal number 2 or 3 pitcher for this team. I think he's playing too good to be traded at this point. I don't know how the Blue Jays could trade him and not feel like they get ripped off unless we're getting a Cy Young caliber pitcher back, and we're not getting that from a non-contender. So
I think his value is exceptionally high in a trade right now. And you got to think, like, I'm not a big guy myself. I think he's an inch taller than me, but he's got like 100 pounds on me. So Alejandro Kirk, you have to think he's 23, which is super young to be playing at this high level. With that body type, though, what's he going to be doing in 5 years?
That's Tony Gwynn.
Well, yeah, but Tony Gwynn was skinny for a lot of his career. He was stealing bases, and then he started stealing donuts, and he put the weight on. But the thing is, there are so few guys like Tony Gwynn. That's why his name popped into your mind, because
Kirby Puckett maybe.
Yeah. So it's a handful of guys who are exceptionally talented. Kirk is also exceptionally talented, but it's like if he's at his highest value now as a trade chip, and you can get a frontline starter, I would absolutely pull the trigger.
You just have to look how much regression. What's he going to put up? Is he going to continue to put up these same numbers? If not, or you have any doubt, you got to look at a trade while the stove's hot.
Yeah, exactly. He's not going to hit 310 for his career, and you know what? If he does, I'll be super happy to be wrong.
So what level of piece do we need back if Alejandro Kirk is going the other way? Because for me, it's like it's got to be someone who's almost a Cy Young contender to feel like we're not losing. Just in terms of like, never mind like this year, future years, whatever. Is there going to be regression next year from Alejandro Kirk? Like we just spent the last 10 minutes talking about this team needs to win this year. So just with this year in mind, no regression from Kirk. He might not hit 310 for his career. He might hit 310 for the rest of the season. So if we're going to take that bat out of our lineup, what do we need back in return to not feel like we're getting ripped off?
So
Rick?
one of the things that when the White Sox were talking about Montas, when they were looking for starting pitching when Lynn went down, they wanted major league ready players. So I did like Garth bringing that up because they're going to ask for major league ready players. So it's very possible that they could ask for Kirk. So I thought that was a great point by him.
Or Castillo. Like those guys are major league ready. They when they're on. And the only thing, I don't think the A's would be super interested in Kirk as much. I mean, they would be, but they also have Sean Murphy, who's a pretty good young catcher. I think if you went, I think you'd have to maybe focus a little more on Castillo with the Reds. I just don't think, Oakland might, but I mean, they have a 25-year-old catcher in Sean Murphy. That's a 26-year-old who's pretty good.
Everybody seems to need 2 catchers nowadays anyways. So
yeah.
I don't know about that. I don't know if even a young guy coming up is going to play more than 100 games for anybody at this point. So,
yeah, because they asked for Vaughn in talks with the White Sox. They wanted Vaughn, and White Sox weren't willing to part with him.
I'm honestly kind of surprised that the Oakland Athletics claim they want major league ready players.
But I mean, Kirk is major league ready on, like, he's not even sniffing arbitration yet. So that's why they're interested.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not taking on, Springer's contract or something like that.
No.
They pay minimum wage.
So with the catching situation then, since we're talking Alejandro Kirk, let's talk Gabriel Moreno made his major league debut this week, or this past week. Danny Jansen, by the sounds of it, is going on the road trip with this team. We're bringing 3 catchers, I guess. We'll see what happens. First impressions of Gabriel Moreno debut in the major leagues. Pat, let's start with you. I don't know how many games you caught. Did you see the highlights?
Not as many as Moreno caught, but I'm very much a stats guy. So 8 for 19. I think he threw at least one runner out, if memory serves correctly.
2 for 3.
Well, then, there you go. 2 for 3. I mean, better than advertised. And the hype on this guy was very, very high. If you're a Jays fan, you've been hearing about him for a little bit now. Did not disappoint. I mean, just incredible. Obviously, you don't expect the kid to hit 421 for the rest of the season or even the rest of the month, but holy shit, that's kind of making your mark, and that would be instilling confidence in me if I'm Ross Atkins, that okay, now if I look at Kirk or Jansen, but more likely Kirk as a trade chip, I know I have 2 very high quality catchers for the major league team. So I think it was a positive all around.
He went 3 for 4, 2 RBIs against a good pitching staff. We talk about the Yankees having a good pitching staff, 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs. And teams are going to learn not to run on him. I mean, he's just going to continue to throw out people. Small sample size, he had no errors. And most impressive of all, he's only struck out 1 time in 19 at-bats. He's putting the ball in play.
Very impressive numbers. Joel, what did you think of Gabriel Moreno's arm strength behind the plate? What was that pop time? I think 1.83 or something elite while throwing with his knee down. I know you're a big guy with the catcher's catching. With
that's
the knee
not
down.
that's not a sluggish catcher behind the plate. That's one of the most athletic guys on the team.
So okay,
he's trying to steal
bases. Not familiar, Joel, because I know you've spent a lot of time on this on your TikTok. Can you explain the difference between catching with a knee down and?
Okay, my issue with one knee down catching and everything is simply when it's a situational thing for me. Okay, it is nobody on base, right? This is something that you do to frame the low strike. It is a tool in the toolbox. It is not something that you always have out. Okay, when the situation is, 2 strikes on a runner, it's a tie game. There's a runner on third base, and you're locked down with one knee down. Like you saw a situation with Kirk. It was an inside pitch. It was inside on him. It's a wild pitch now, but if you're in the crouch and you just move over to get that ball, when you're locked down to one knee, that ball is a fastball inside that you can't move because your knee is locked in position. That's a wild pitch now. It goes to the backstop. So to me, it's very situational. It's an absolute tool catchers need to use, and Kirk is incredible at it because he's 5'8", he's so low to the ground, and he makes a fastball 2-3 inches under the zone, and he brings his glove up. It looks like it's a middle of the zone fastball. So he's got that talent to do it with one knee down, but there's situations where you're talking about stealing a strike, where it's more important to execute a strike and execute a pitch, and giving up the ability to move, which costs you a run, right? You have to weigh what's on the table situationally when you're doing it.
So thank you for that breakdown. Now, I believe both of the runners that Moreno threw out, it was from a one knee down situation. So watching his explosive athleticism that, we heard hyped up for so long. I mean, this is a kid who grew up playing minor ball as a shortstop and was converted to catching. It is fun to watch him playing back there.
Yeah, the point that I want, I've made it over the course of the weeks that we bring Moreno up. I see him in the Alvarez situation where you need his bat. You need the bat. You need the bat. You need to get him in. We have this absolute luxury in the catchers department, right? It's just great. All 3 of them. We want all 3 of them to play. And when you watch Moreno's got this Russell Martin athleticism. Remember when Martin wanted to play the infield? He's like, I want to play third base or second base for Team Canada when you guys are playing, World Championship baseball games. To me, I see that with Moreno. I see, like I said, he tried to steal a base in the series. He's got speed. He does move really, really, really well. And if that's a situation where you want him to be a catcher, but if there's some place on the field that you can find 20, 30, like if, playing third base occasionally. There's athleticism in this guy that transcends him being behind the plate all the time.
So okay, let's talk then with Moreno. Was anybody surprised by his usage? He's been up for 10 games so far. He's only appeared in 5 of them. Kirk continues to play and DH. Moreno is not DHing. Anybody surprised by this?
No, I'm not. The way Kirk is hitting, and Moreno being absolutely incredible, out of the first handful of games he's played in, I think what they're looking to do, and I agree with the move, is just stick with Kirk playing every day, catching 4 or 5 games a week, and the other 2 he's DHing because nobody in baseball probably again will be catching 140 games in a season. It's just not a thing anymore from what I can tell. So no, I'm not surprised. It's good that he's getting some reps in, but at the same time, if it were me, I just wouldn't want to overwhelm or overwork him, where it's like, okay, you're playing in 9 of the first 10 or wherever the case may be. But I mean, that's just me.
At what point? Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Rick. You got it.
At what point, I mean, if he has a hot bat, don't you want to get him in the lineup and take advantage of it? That would be my question.
Like
full bat and 400.
He went, the first game of the Yankees series, he was amazing. And then he sits out the next 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could see one of them, but I mean, you got to get him in there. You didn't call him up from AAA to ride the bench. I mean, and he has shown that he is capable of being an everyday guy, whether it's DH or behind the plate. I mean, he is. My first impressions are like I didn't really watch much of his minor league stuff. You see the stats and it's like, oh my God, he's hitting 360 in the fall league. But he is just an athlete. I mean, the way he blocks, pitches in the dirt, and he gets behind him and like his glove behind the plate. And, I mean, I was skeptical, should we bring him up? We got Jano and Kirk who are both raking, but man, he's as advertised. I don't know. I think he should be playing at least 5 days a week.
He's shown really good plate discipline too, which has been really impressive for his first couple of games at the major league level, right? Like it shows that he's not pressing. It shows that he's not overly excited. Like he's sticking with his approach. And again, it's a really small sample size. But I agree, right? I would like to see him in more games. And so there's 2 problems. One is Jansen coming back, and now you've got 3 catchers, and how do you rotate them all into the mix? And you want Kirk's, bat in there, let's say, but you also want Moreno's bat in there, but you need to rotate Springer and whoever else through that DH position. So there's definitely a crunch there, and it's something has to be done to alleviate that. So whether we go back to what we were saying earlier and say trading Kirk and opening up that spot for Moreno to get more playing time while also getting back an asset or something, right? I feel like this is going to come to a head somewhere because you're right. You don't want Moreno to be, spending more time on the bench than he is at the plate.
Okay.
Joel, anything to add there on Moreno?
Well, I think about moves that like people have like Vladdy came at third base, moves to first base, right? Scott Hatteberg in Moneyball was a catcher who you'd never consider bringing out from behind the plate and went to play first base. This is a much better baseball player. This is just a much better baseball player than that, and you have to put him on the field.
This was an infielder.
Yeah, like there's so much potential for like. I think you have to also imagine where you want this franchise. And like Bo is a lockdown position at shortstop. We don't want to get rid of Bo, right? Like we hope that Espinal would stay. Chapman probably sails after next season, right? So you're looking at third base and you go, well, if we could get Moreno at third base playing there 100 games a year and then get him behind the plate for 40 to 50, maybe have him playing more catching later in the season to bolster that lineup because you've got more production in that spot and you're going Kirk and Moreno. And then you're looking at like Groshans or Elvis, right? And you're like, okay, which one of these guys could I move? Which one can I build a trade off of? Because like, once again, we're talking about production. It just sucks because like if it was second base and you had 3 amazing baseball players at second base, you go, oh, well, let's move on to shortstop, move on to third base, and then it's dealt with and you don't worry about it, right? Or any of those infield positions. We're talking about catchers. But then that catching spot, we have dominated Major League Baseball in all of year. Number one, our production from behind the plate is incredible. So why give up that production? We have to find a way with these young guys. You can't do it really with Kirk. You know, Kirk's not going to go play shortstop for him. But Martinez could find a way to get into the game on the other side of the ball. So, Moreno. I'm sorry, I said Moreno.
You want to see Moreno
Martinez.
play third this year?
No, not this year. But I'm saying like we have to think with that, like I was talking about with Yordan Alvarez coming up strictly as a DH and then working him into the lineup eventually in the outfield. He's not ready for it when they brought him up. You got to get that bat in the lineup, right? So I'm thinking when you've got Jansen, who handles the pitching staff so well, he's got this newly discovered power. You can't get rid of that. If there's potentially 35 home runs, 30 home runs for the catcher spot in that bat. And then you've got this hitter in Kirk who gives this look at 5'8" that is completely different from everybody. His strike zone is so small. His plate discipline's incredible. He's gotten so much better behind the plate. You can't give up on that yet either. So it's just like you can't. Those 3 of the most talented players on this team happen to be catchers, which is strange. But
okay, let's look into the crystal ball quickly. Early August, is Gabriel Moreno still on this team? Joel, let's start with you. We've got Kirk, we got Jansen, or has one moved on, or do we carry 3?
oh, that's what you're asking. Is one moved on? That's you know I feel like
or
one's
do we
gonna
carry
move on.
3, or do we just carry 3? Let's just assume
I
everyone's
feel like-
healthy.
I feel like one will move on. That is what I'm
Okay.
It feels like that's going to happen. I don't
See
want that.
I see a lot of
as a-
nodding.
I don't want it because I'm just like, oh my God, these guys are so great when they play. Danny's so great when he plays. Moreno's so great when he plays. Kirk is so great when he plays. These guys are vital players on the team. They just all happen to be catchers. So
I see a lot of nodding and agreement that one of these catchers is going to get moved on before the trade deadline.
I think sorry.
Sorry, Jen, let's go with you.
I was going to say, I think the pitching has become a big enough need
Yeah.
that you're going to have to give up something you don't want to give up.
Mhm.
That's. I think they're being forced into that position.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. It feels like we've had this conversation 2-3 weeks ago, and it was maybe a different temperature in the room because the pitching hadn't become what it is. I think we still had Ryu at that point. Oh,
It's crazy that catching is usually a defensive position, and the Blue Jays just have 3 guys that can crush offensively. It's crazy.
yeah. Very cool. All right, we've got a lot to talk to still, but before we do, we are going to play guess the career total earnings. Joel's already looking for his pen and paper here to make his notes.
Or his
I
iPad.
got I hope I get to say my topic without getting the and you get it because
You get it by
nobody-
default, Joel.
the
All
old-
right.
Man, I
So-
nailed one last
Topic.
time. I got one right on
I
last time.
still
So
owe
I'm
you
going for
$500
that again.
for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so for
I've been
Pat,
checking the mail, dude. I've been checking the mail. I haven't seen it yet.
I gotta wait till inflation goes up a bit more. So for Pat and for anybody that's new here, we do this game Price is Right style. So I'm gonna name a current or past Major League athlete of some sort, maybe baseball, maybe some other sport. We're gonna go around and get our bids in Price is Right style on career total earnings just from baseball contracts, no sponsorship outside of the game. Closest to without going over gets the floor for a few minutes and we get to discuss their topic of choice. So we're going to run the screen for that. Okay. And since it is Father's Day, we have a Father's Day selection of Major League Baseball players. See if you can recognize the pattern and no peeking ahead at who the next player may or may not be in this game. If you're watching in the YouTube live chat, and we've got around 40 of you, feel free to get your bids in as well, just for fun. So we're going to start, and we're going to start with Joel. Dante Bichette. Career total earnings for Dante Bichette. Joel, you're up first.
70 million.
70 from Joel. Rick, what do you got?
How many seasons? I always ask this, but how many seasons?
How many seasons for Dante Bichette? We've got, looks like 12 seasons.
Let's go 80.
80 million for Rick. Jen, you're up next. Dante Bichette.
85.
85. Garth.
I got one guy behind me, so I don't want to do this, but $1.
$1 for Garth. And Pat, what is your...
I was actually thinking the same thing. I'm going to go with 37 million.
37 million for Pat. Well, the closest is Pat with 37. Correct answer. Total career earnings, Dante Bichette, $42 million.
And a surprisingly low wins above replacement for a guy who just mashed home runs like crazy.
And Jolly Olive did a great video on him recently on YouTube. You should check it out. It's real good.
I think I may have seen something, whether it was that one or something different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see 111 million in the YouTube live chat. So yeah, I was surprised by that low number as well. 42 million. All right, Pat, the floor is yours. Give us a topic and we'll discuss until we get bored of discussing.
I am not prepared for this, so I'm going to hand it over to Garth. I had to cut the grass today, so I've been very busy. But Garth was second closest, so I'm going to hand this one over to him, being a first timer here.
Oh, alrighty.
Allow it.
I got this isn't specifically about baseball. It's more about baseball journalism.
Okay.
And like, I don't profess to be a baseball journalist at all. I'm a hot takes and anger and emotion kind of guy. But recently there was a leaked memo from the owners of The Athletic, who also own the New York Times, saying that they wanted all of their baseball writers to quit discussing politics in their articles. So I ended up writing an article on my blog about it, about how it's impossible. Like, you can't write about sports without looking at the context of the time in history. I mean, like, okay, we're not going to talk politics, so we just don't give a shit about Jackie Robinson. We don't give a shit about stuff like that. Like, we weren't supposed to discuss the Josh Donaldson thing with Tim Anderson. Like, whether you like it or not, politics and sports are intertwined. Whether it's Muhammad Ali, Colin Kaepernick, Megan Rapinoe, like, it kind of made me a bit upset, because I love The Athletic. I think they're some of the best sports writers in the business for all sports. I subscribe. I think they're brilliant. And like, I'm sure it was one of the writers who leaked this memo, but I don't know. I'm not one of those shut up and dribble guys. I like it when athletes speak their mind, especially when they come from, they come from other things, other groups other than straight white guys. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Should sports journalism focus, or not focus, but I mean, at least be cognizant of the world around them? Or should sports just write about sports?
Yeah. So I guess since I handed off to you, I'll go first very briefly.
That's good.
When you first said politics, I disagreed with you, because I don't need to hear about, Donald Trump or,
Oh, I don't give a shit about that. I mean, like, all social issue stuff, like everything. It's all political.
Hold on. I do understand. So I don't want to hear about, unless it's pertinent to the story, I don't want to hear about a politician. But social justice issues, absolutely, I agree with you. Like my favorite rap group is Run the Jewels. They are exceptionally political, and I'm with you. Yep, that's the shirt right here. And so I agree completely with you. You can't just say, hey, the Blue Jays won 10-9 against the Yankees if there was something related to the game, like the Josh Donaldson thing, like a number of different things in baseball and other sports. So yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think if you're kind of whitewashing things and not speaking to any of the injustices that are going on, you're only telling half the story, if that. And it's a disservice to the readers and to the athletes. And I'll just do that because we had a little silence there. So there we
go.
Joel, go ahead.
I thought I was expecting Jen to have something to say.
I thought the same thing. I wanted to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I'll let Jen go last. Yep. Then I'll let her have. Personally, because I'm a screenwriter. Okay, so I look at this situation like you're in a free country and you have to be able to. Why you can't put limitations on somebody? Do the San Francisco Giants not have a manager now? Is that what would be the case? Just nobody manages them because you can't talk about Gabe Kapler, right? So, to me, like what happened in screenwriting recently with the Oscars is kind of a weird situation where it's the opposite, where they've told you what qualifies to win the best picture, and there's now qualifications that you have to fit, which just is shocking to me because when it comes to writing for film or writing for an audience, I think the only thing that should ever matter is the story, and that's all that should matter. And when it comes to covering sports as a writer, it's you pouring the story through yourself as a filter, and whatever comes out is what you are as a writer. And if you happen to be polarizing in any way, shape, or form, it's the people who take that in who are the ones who judge whether your writing is overly political or just the right amount of political for them. It's the audience that makes the decision on what they want to consume. So you can't control the artist on what painting they try to create. I don't know. That's my take.
Rick, you want to add anything before we throw to Jen to scream at all of us with her passionate plea?
It's going to be quick because we want to get it to Jen. Everyone just let me buy my time. I agree. I mean, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago with the kneeling and not doing the anthem. You cannot get, you can't get freedom of speech and then say, I got to dictate what you say or I'm going to get upset. You can't have it both ways. So that's my take. Now for the best part.
All right, Jen. Let it back.
I'm a public high school teacher, and while we teachers don't talk about politics or present our political opinions or anything of that nature, we are extremely aware of the fact that social politics, economic politics, and so forth affect the students that we teach, and it affects each one of them differently, and it does maybe change certain ways that we maybe approach certain topics or approach certain situations. You're always very highly cognizant, even if you're not outwardly discussing it, you're very cognizant. And sometimes those conversations do arise because of the situation. So, when it comes to a writer telling a story, they absolutely need to have the freedom to tell the story in the way that they think best represents that story, best represents the situation, best represents the player, whatever the case might be. It doesn't mean that every story has to have a political, slant to it, but to actually tell people there's no politics. I can't teach my classes without being aware of politics. Does that make any sense? Even if I'm not outwardly, my opinion can totally stay out of it. But I am doing my diverse group of students a disservice if I ignore the fact that politics plays a huge role in their lives and how they see the world and how they learn and how they connect and so on and so forth. So I think those types of stories are really important to be told. And as Joel said, you know, it is up to the reader to decide whether or not they want to read that story. And if they don't want to, that is their freedom of choice.
I mean, I agree with that 100%.
We've run into this here quite a bit. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of comments on this video saying, hey, leave your... I mean, we got it on the last one when we talked about kneeling for the anthem and stuff, right? Was... I don't come to your podcast to hear about whatever. Just tell me about how great Gabriel Moreno is or whatever, right? And like, okay, tune in at the end then, or skip through. Like, we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about. And that kind of holds true with this. I mean, it's a sticky situation that baseball has painted itself into. And I just want to kind of highlight this because last year they moved the All-Star game out of Atlanta because Georgia had passed their restrictive voting laws and whatever, right? So all the hubbub was about that. But now they've set a precedent of being in tune with social activism, and like they're going to get into a spot where they're going to have to make tough business decisions on which issues matter to them and which don't. Like right now, abortion and pro-choice, whatever rights are like kind of a big issue all over the U.S. With Roe v. Wade, and we don't have to get into the details of that, right? But I mean, the All-Star game this year is in L.A., if I'm not incorrect there, so I don't think we have to necessarily worry about L.A. or California passing some abortion laws that are going to upset people. But what happens next year when the All-Star game is in a place where it's another issue? Like, what issues are big enough to move the All-Star game? Which issues aren't big enough to care about at that level? It's a sticky spot to be in.
The point I wanted to make in my article was that like social issues and sports are so intertwined, and they've been intertwined since sports became a thing. You know, like you look at like Muhammad Ali and you know, like Jackie Robinson, like all of these people, like they broke down barriers in sport first, and society followed. And for the owners of the hedge fund or whoever owns the New York Times and the Athletic to say that, oh, it's bad for business if we report on stuff like this, it's infuriating. Like, you cannot tell the story of baseball without talking about the social issues that are intertwined with the game. You just can't. And so for them to tell their reporters, who many are opinion reporters, like they write opinion pieces, like, I don't know. I don't know how the Athletic, who I love, like I love their, like the Athletic. I don't know how the writers can go forward with owners who feel that way.
Well, what's really interesting too is you just said it, is the Athletic, I feel, is the right platform for that, right?
Exactly.
That is one of the things I think, because they wanted to be different, right? They did not want to tell, game recaps or something of that nature. They wanted to go beyond what was happening on the field, right? And that was what was going to set them apart, and they were going to pay their writers accordingly, and so on and so forth. And so for them specifically to tell their writers, stick to a script is, really interesting.
Well, yeah, I agree with both of you. And it's, to me, I would take it a step further, perhaps. Major League Baseball and no sports league will ever do this, in my opinion. I think playing a national anthem before a sporting event is some of the dorkiest fucking shit I've ever seen in my entire life. I live in Canada, and Canada's okay. Am I standing up for this? And no anthem sounds good. They're just varying degrees of boring, dorky fucking songs. They should not play the anthem before the game. I can't believe it's still a thing, and Major League Baseball will never stop playing it, is my prediction.
Why is debate?
So playing the anthem before a game in and of itself could be considered political.
Yep.
Yeah, well, absolutely, I agree with you.
Right. So there it is. That's every game kicks off that way. Whatever your opinion is on it, right? Every game kicks off that way.
Why is debate a bad thing? Why do we constantly think that debating's a bad thing? I think it's what's great about sports. If we all agreed, it would be boring. If we all agreed on this podcast, who would watch it?
Well, and that's a great point, Rick. And that's kind of where, ultimately, I land on this whole issue, specifically with like the Athletic and writing and journalism and whatever, is like, let the viewership or the clicks dictate the restrictions, right? Like if I'm a writer for the Athletic and I want to make political articles and nobody seems to click on my articles, then okay, my job performance is lacking, right? And my next contract should reflect that, right? But if that's not the case, like, give me that opportunity to write about what I want to write about, and then if the clicks are there, they shouldn't have a choice but to support them. So it is frustrating to see, but we are seeing that kind of all over the place these days, right? So
it's a great topic, by the way, Garth. Like, we could talk about this honestly forever. One thing I wanted to say though was, like, are we in an unstable time in baseball where the ownership is like, one season we have all these home runs, now we are in this weird juggly ball situation? Isn't that the politics of baseball, right? Like, yeah, aren't we? And with Ken Rosenthal being kind of like the situation with him, he was a very polarizing writer who would write stories that would make baseball not look so great. And now it seems like you're literally
and look who hired him because of that.
Yep.
Right. Like it seems like you're pushing the narrative of what the story of baseball is. It just seems really like, I don't know. It's evil tactics.
Any last comments anyone wants to add before you get to the next round here?
I'd like to know how I gained this reputation of being a yeller.
I didn't hear you yell. There was passion. I think that's
no yelling.
But,
I said shout. I said you were a shouter.
A shouter.
Right.
So yeah, to your
I'll take the blame. Jen, I've been spreading that shit all over Twitter.
All right, Pat, you won this round, so we'll let you end this the floor, and then we'll get on to the next one. So go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, I would just challenge anybody watching or listening to send me on Twitter. I'm at Pat McDonald. Send me an anthem that sounds good, because they're also fucking stupid. Like, if you found the Canadian anthem on Spotify, would you add that to a playlist? I don't fucking think so.
I would do that Molson Canadian one where he's like, I am Canadian.
I don't like that dorky Canadian.
Radiohead has a really good song called the national anthem. So
we'll see. Now you have my attention.
Now we're talking. All right, next round of Guess the Total Career Earnings. Need a better name for this show still. Vlad Sr. Happy Father's Day to Vlad Sr. Rick, we're going to start with you. Total career earnings, Vladimir Guerrero Sr.
125.
125. All right. Jen, and reminder to everybody in the YouTube live chat, get your guesses in as well. Jen, go ahead.
85. I'm just going to go with 85 for everyone. 85.
Right. Perfect. It's better than Joel's strategy of 69 for everything because he's a teenage boy. All right, Garth, what do you got?
For God's 69. I want to see that.
85. I'm going to go. He played a lot in Montreal who were cheap asses, so I'm going to say like 73.
73. Pat McDonald, what do you got for Vladdy Jr.?
107 million.
107. And Joel, what do you got?
92.
92. All right. Well, ding, ding, ding. We have a $500 bonus winner. Someone got it right on the head. Vladimir Guerrero Sr. Total career earnings, $125 million. Rick, you nailed it.
Broken clock is right twice a day, they always say.
All right. Floor is yours.
There you go, Rick.
This is going to be a pretty general topic. Take it for what you will. Out of all the rule changes to the game, what do you believe is the one that makes the most sense and the least sense? So pitch clock, it can be anything, banning of the shift, any of that. I just want to get your feelings on which one makes sense to you guys, which one don't.
That's a good one. Jen, looks like you're ready.
I don't understand banning the shift to improve offense if you're going to change the balls so that they don't go out of the park. That doesn't make sense to me.
Is why I was hoping for this topic. Like, just so, and I know Joel's just itching at the bit to talk too.
Well, that's a good one for one. Joel, looks like you got a
I'm
counter to
I'm
that.
I don't want to be against that. It's just I feel like I'm just going to talk rule changes in general. Like baseball was so locked in what baseball was for large periods of time. Then they moved the mound back. Then they add the DH. It's just incrementally small, just small changes. And now it's every year 3 big changes that the pitcher can't throw this many innings, or you got to put the defense over here. And it just seems like the game is so malleable in its rules right now. And there's such an inconsistency to it. And you play this season, but you know what? Don't change your swing around this year, because next year the game will be completely different and cater to you left-handed hitters that just like to jerk it over to that side of the field. It seems like you're giving up the fact that baseball moves in waves that take 15 years sometimes to come to shore, and to just throw all of these rules at the game to try to mend the game in some situation. I don't know. I don't think it helps. It's just a lot. Robot umpires. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just have robot hitters.
Yeah, I would say the one that makes to me the most sense is the pitch clock. I used to live across the street from the Sky Dome for a number of years. So when Bautista hit that home run in 2015, I actually heard it live before it was on TV. So I've been to a bunch of games. I loved nothing more than going to see a Roy Halladay start or a Mark Burley start. And when I played at an exceptionally low level, I was the same way as a pitcher, where you bang it on them and you get through it. Game's 2 hours, 10 minutes, you're good to go. But a 4-hour game can sometimes be entertaining, but for the casual fan who Major League Baseball really wants to attract to try and grow the game, they can't take a full day just to go and watch a baseball game. Most people, you just get bored. It doesn't make sense to me personally. The rule that makes the least sense is banning the shift, for sure. It's so stupid. If you can only hit the ball to the right side, you're not playing well enough. If I go to my job and I say, listen, of the 4 tasks I have, I'm not really good at and can't do 2 of them, so I'm just not going to do them today, my boss would tell me to get the fuck out. Same thing in baseball. Figure it out. I'm sorry. It's a really hard game for a reason. And sorry, names aren't showing up yet. Joel, your point about how there used to be incremental changes over a number of years, and now it's like next year is going to look a lot different from this year, and 5 years ago looks a lot different from this year. I agree wholeheartedly with you, where it's like, okay, if I'm showing up as a fan to a baseball game, a casual fan especially, will I even know half the rules in 5 years from now? Who knows?
Like it takes nearly a lifetime to explain the basic concept of the game, and now you have to every 3 years you have to re-explain to the casual. Well, this is what's going now. Now there's a 5-point homer now that they've implemented that comes in the 7th. It's a random thing that happens. It's like double jeopardy. Like what like these crazy rules that are coming out of nowhere.
You call your shot.
Yeah.
You don't criticize the rules of Jeopardy. That show was great until.
So here's my question to you. I don't watch a lot of hockey. When's the last time they did a rule change?
All the time.
Yeah,
all the time. Okay, I wasn't sure other sports if they're doing the same type of things where they're
all the
changing.
time.
I just want to highlight some of the most recent rule changes in baseball. So 2023 defensive shifts are going to be banned. Pitch clocks are coming. I mean, it's not official yet, but it's going to happen. 2022 NL adopts the DH, postseason expanded to 12 teams, and draft lottery implemented. Prior to that, we have 2020 was looks like half a dozen different rules here, with the extra runner on second base in extra innings, 7-inning double headers, postseason expansion, universal DH. Before that, we had 2016 slides on potential double plays will require that base runners make a bona fide attempt to reach and remain on base. An attempt to eliminate some of the takeout slides, so it's player safety more than anything. 2008, MLB adds replay review. So not really a rule change, but just I guess.
Yeah, it changes the landscape of the game for sure.
Chalk that up in a similar category to robo-umps, I suppose. But before that, you got to go 20 years back to the last rule change, 1988. You know what that rule change was? Catchers must wear helmets while on defense. 10 years before that, pitcher can't throw at the batter. And then like a series of safety rules and clarifications over the 1900s. So yeah, I mean, rule changes are getting out of hand lately.
I greatly dislike the runner on second in extra innings.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
I don't like that the game, the strategy changes, right?
Mhm.
You know, partway through, like they've been playing, they're tied, right? They've been head to head this whole time, and now we're completely changing the rules and the strategy. I absolutely hate that. I understand to speed up the game, but I just think it's ridiculous that you change the rules and change the strategy in the middle of a tied game. Love the universal designated hitter because most pitchers can't hit, and I just hate watching a spot be wasted. Personally, I'd rather see somebody who can hit the ball.
For all the hockey fans listening, I would rather see a home run derby style tiebreaker in extra innings.
I was just gonna say that.
Let's do a 10th inning of like normal baseball, maybe an 11th if we really want to get to 11 innings, and then after that, your own pitcher takes the mound and you pitch through your order, right? Like everybody gets one swing, and who's got the most home runs after that? I don't know. Why not?
They actually do that at a minor league place in my hometown here. And they literally, it's home run derby. They just take the hats off. They do home run derby. Whoever gets the most out of the guys who they have their choosing, they win the game if it's a tie.
There you go. Love that idea. Okay. For me, best MLB rule change, 1971. All major league players were ordered to wear protective helmets. I like that one. Dumbest rule in baseball, in my opinion, is MLB doesn't trade draft picks.
Yep.
I think that's dumb. I don't know if that's because I watch football and hockey and it's such a big part of those trades, but I don't know. I wish that was an equalizer in some trades. I mean, we just spent so much time talking
An
about
asset, right?
In those sports,
trade your assets.
Yeah, it's an asset.
In those sports, though, draft picks mean so much more.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in baseball, there's like 500 rounds, and even the top guys aren't making the show, for a couple of years. In hockey and basketball, football, when you trade a draft pick, if you trade a first rounder, like that means something. Like in baseball, it's such a crapshoot. Like, how would you value those?
But that's
how would you value?
Okay, but let them try. Let them try and let them fail, and let some teams be taken advantage of while the Rays load up.
Yeah, but then you're going to get teams that are shitty for like 30 years because
we already have those teams, though.
Yeah,
like I just don't understand the idea of like handcuffing a rule to save owners from themselves. I don't like it. I don't know.
Well, and especially like the second after you draft them, you can trade them.
Yeah. All right, good topic there, Rick. On to the next round. Craig Biggio. Happy Father's Day to Cavan's father, Craig Biggio. And who better to start this round with than Cavan's biggest fan, Shouting Jen. You're up first. All right, Craig Biggio, total career earnings. Jen.
You already know what I'm going to say.
We're going to pencil you in for 85? All right, 85.
Because I'm bad at this game, and I just don't know.
Garth, what do you got? Craig Biggio. Played 18 seasons, all with Houston.
Yeah, that's
Longer than I thought.
I'm going to say, man, I know I'm kind of kind of penciling myself in or forcing myself in everything. I'm going to go 79.
79 for Garth. Okay, Pat, what do you got for Craig Biggio?
I'm going to go 92 million.
92 million. Okay.
Weirdly, the number I wanted to go with, 92. The same number.
It seems right.
Doesn't it? It just seems like it'd be
And
92.
the number of years he played.
My heart told me 92. Pat. That's weird.
I think you should do 91 then.
No, I'm gonna go with 100. Create a little. I don't do that. I'm not gonna piggyback. It's me.
All right, Rick, what do you got?
Joel, don't get mad. I'm going to go 69.
Never been my pick. I don't know where this reputation is coming from.
All right. Okay, well, it's closest without going over, and Garth was the closest, was 79. The correct answer was 82. So Garth is already gone, though, by default, out of Pat. So we're going to give this one to Jen, with 85 as closest.
I had a couple of topics. I don't know how good this one is, and you guys may have already discussed it on one of the earlier episodes. But this can kind of go out to everybody with regards to Verlander's comments about how close the Jays were to potentially getting him. And one of his reasons for not coming to Toronto was the ballpark. And so I assume by that he means that it's a hitters friendly ballpark, and thus, would potentially, decline his numbers. It should be worth noting as well, though, that Texas has no state tax. So that gives them a significant edge. So I guess my question is, how big of a disadvantage do you think, let's say, the Blue Jays are when trying to sign, free agent players, and you've got the fact that you're in Canada crossing a border, you've got different income tax or, the ballpark factors, this or that. Like how many players do you think they've maybe lost out on as a result of some of these things?
I don't think the ballpark should matter. If you have enough confidence in your pitching, it shouldn't matter where you play.
Well, that's why I found that comment interesting, that he specifically said that.
I mean, do you think
because he's got a no-hitter?
Yeah, the greatest pitcher of all time.
He's got a no-hitter. Both of them against Toronto in Toronto? Was the first one in Toronto as well?
I was at the first one, 2010.
So there, he's got two. Yeah, he's got two against in. So that's that's tough to be. It's a pretty good situation to be in a ballpark. I think it sucks the amount of tax that you have to play. That's a really terrible situation in sports where those states that's a big percentage. That's what your agent comes there to do. You get an agent to come and make you more money, and literally that's 10-15% of $150 million we're talking about here sometimes with these contracts. So it really is a big deal financially when these guys are branding themselves, and it's about how much, like Judge taking, I'm going to go for myself and sign a bigger deal. Well, you would want to sign the bigger deal in the place where there's the biggest amount of money that comes back to you in the end. So that's what sports is about nowadays. So I do think that is a big factor. We do have a lovely ball club, though. I
think one of the reasons why this also struck me was just because, this past off season in particular, the Jays were already hamstrung with who they could go after with the COVID vaccination rules, right? So then you're adding in now these other arbitrary factors, arbitrary meaning, the player is taking a look at it. And you just wonder what could have been this past off season, versus the advantage, I guess, that other teams have had. And I sort of bring that up as well because so many American writers seem to love pointing out that the Jays seemingly have an advantage because every team has to leave a couple players behind.
And I kind of get that, I suppose, but to your original question, and you mentioned Verlander, and I'll speak to him specifically first. I think it comes down to money. I don't think he wants to go out there. He has a fairly clean image, all things considered. And so I don't think he wants to go speaking to reporters and saying, well, I'm pocketing $4 or $5 million more than I would have playing in Canada and getting taxed at a much higher rate. And he's calling now. He's pissed off because he's watching.
Me, I'm putting it on mute.
That's Ben. That's Ben Verlander calling.
I won't take that guy's call. No. Tell him I'm busy. Yeah, so what I was going to say is I do believe that the Jays, and they are at a financial disadvantage due to tax laws in Canada, for sure. You can't deny that. It's simply a fact. They are, however, they're now attracting over the past handful of years a number of great star players. Barrios signed an extension, Ryu, Springer, others that I can't think of. But 10 or 20 years ago, there was a much bigger difference with a lot more players saying, I absolutely will not sign there, probably for additional reasons that I'm not mentioning.
Well, I think the Jays are always going to be at a disadvantage because we're always going to have a higher tax rate than anywhere in the States. Maybe apart from like California or New York, but if you're playing in New York or LA, you're making that bank up on, car dealership ads and whatever regional restaurant wants to put you on TV. But I mean, of course it's a huge advantage. I mean, the Tampa Bay Rays are in their third consecutive Stanley Cup, and they're re-signing their guys below market value simply because Florida has no state income tax. And those guys are making more by taking less and staying there. And I don't blame Verlander. He's got a couple of years left. You might as well pad that nest egg.
Here's an maybe unpopular, definitely poorly thought out opinion that just came to my mind. Last year, we saw the federal government implement what was called a national interest exemption for teams playing in Toronto. I think it was the NHL was involved as well, right? Where it was like, we have these vaccine rules, but if you're a pro athlete, they don't apply to you, right? Could we do something like that with our pro sports teams and just be like, hey, it's 30% tax, but if you're a pro athlete, it's 10% or whatever, right?
They kind of did that before the 94 or 95 NHL lockout, whatever year they were locked out and they missed a year. They kind of did that before because the Canadian dollar was at like 50 cents American. And, Canadian teams were hemorrhaging money. Because how can you pay the same kind of, and it's pre-salary cap. So when that was, and I believe, I don't know, I think there was some kind of governmental, they stepped in and did something with to help out with the NHL's payroll. So, I mean, it can be done, but the government, do they really want to lose out on quite a bit of cash anymore?
Well, okay,
I don't know.
quite a bit of cash. So if we're talking about a payroll of $150 million, we're talking about $50 million.
Yeah,
that's nothing.
It's like 25 or 30. Yeah, and you think about the Jays now have better players wanting to play here. You don't think they're going to sell more tickets and concessions? It would more than pay for itself, I think.
That is kind of the argument, right? When Amazon comes to a town or a state or whatever and is like, we're going to put our headquarters here, we're going to build a new outlet factory here, right? But if we're going to do it and we're going to bring this boost to the economy, right, create jobs and blah blah blah, we want all these tax exemptions, right? You see the same thing with oil companies. I mean, I'm in Alberta, so I see it all the time, right? Why not do it with sports? I mean, I just watched the Battle of Alberta go on between the Flames and the Oilers, right? This country loves sports. I don't know how many hot dogs or bags of popcorn you need to sell to make up the difference in a tax exemption for the Toronto Blue Jays, but it's got to be negligible at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I mean, sports teams already get a lot of government money. They get stadiums built all the time. No one ever builds their own stadium unless there is a significant amount of money that comes in from state, provincial, federal, municipal.
Hey, you don't get political on me.
Yeah. Well, I don't write for the Athletic, so I'm allowed to say this.
The one thing I was going to say on top of it, though, that the Blue Jays have, which I guess the Raptors have it as well, but when it comes to the NHL, you have multiple franchises fighting for the allegiance of the entire country, where in this situation with the Toronto Blue Jays, the entire country is the fan base of this team, right? You've literally got from coast to coast this entire fan base. So if you can't rally that for money to go out and be
And
appealing for free agents.
the owners own the network that shows every Jays game.
Right? Like the money is so within the organization and within this massive country and this massive audience that you have to expose yourself to, especially at this point in the year when basketball is done and hockey is done and you have literally the focal point of Canadian sports channels having to go, well, this is what happened in sports. Baseball, that's it. Baseball happened again today. So like you've got to be, if you can't rally that and make money and be appealing to free agents, you're not going to get a better market, right? You're not going to find a better situation, really, much, in all of sport.
Just speaking to the idea of like Rogers owns the Blue Jays, Rogers owns Rogers Sportsnet, and having a monopoly on this Canadian market in terms of sports fans. Do you think that makes them like lackadaisical in their approach to marketing the Blue Jays? Because I've wondered this for a long time when it comes to like bringing back the Expos or putting a team in Vancouver or Calgary, right? Like, we're talking about splitting that market in half, but would it not be an interesting play for like Bell to step up? They've got TSN already and be like, we've got the Vancouver Expos, and now we've got two teams who are like pushing each other for a share of that 30 million person audience. I don't know. I do wonder sometimes about Sportsnet kind of taking their foot off the gas and just being like, yeah, we're the baseball guys. Like, if you like baseball, this is it. Come to us and give us your money.
I think with the Jays, I think usually I would tend to agree. I do not like Rogers just as an entity for a number of reasons, not related to baseball. So I want to take a huge shit all over them. But in this scenario, I don't feel that would be fair or accurate for me to do so. You're right. They're the only show in town. Like, okay, I live in Toronto and I like baseball, but I'm going to go watch a different team. No, you're going to watch the Jays. They constantly on Sportsnet, it's always commercials about the Jays, promoting the next game, all the different free giveaways they're doing at the gates before the game. The front office has done an excellent job over the past number of years in doing their best to build a winning team, but also having a team that's good for the future. Of course, if I'm the only show in town or if I'm your only good employee, I don't have to bust my ass. I do have to give them credit there because I do feel as though the organization is doing quite well.
I don't mean it in a baseball sense. I mean it in a broadcaster sense. Like, is Sportsnet doing all they can to be?
Well, they're getting almost 1 million viewers for a weekend game on TV. Like,
and they have Dan Shulman. Yeah, they have Dan Shulman, who I consider to be the best commentator in baseball, and I don't think it's even close.
Yeah. One thing that irritates me about Sportsnet's coverage is they repeat the same stories and talking points over and over again. So you might have, for sake of argument, and I won't name any of them, but because I don't want to look like I'm singling any of them out, but you might have, one mention on the broadcast, that a hitter has changed his swing a little bit. And then you hear that in the post-game show. And then you hear it the next day on the radio broadcast. And then there's an article about it. And it's like, how many times can you recycle the same story? And given the number of people you're staffing to cover this team on these various platforms, you'd think you could provide a little bit more than just the same talking points recycled for 3 days and then on to the next one. That's my biggest.
Rash, quit recycling.
I mean,
you guys were all thinking it. Don't
look. It's a great point that Jen brings up, and I mean, this is the double-edged sword that is having the broadcaster own the team, right? Is you do get an exceptional level of access, but it is also like, Shai Davidi isn't going to come out and shit on anybody over any decisions they make, right? We don't have any real unbiased opinion with any level of access because it is. It's
honestly, I think the most honesty you're going to see is at the letters with Ben and Arden. I think they do a good job that they don't, if somebody's playing bad, they don't sugarcoat it. So I do like that podcast quite a bit.
I think the MLB level comparison is with Rosenthal there. Like Rosenthal starts speaking out against the MLB, and they're like, "All right, well, see ya. Like we don't need that around here." And I think there's a little bit of that, toe the company line mentality from everybody at Sportsnet. But anyways, I digress. If Big Daddy Rogers is watching, we will take your money here at the Walkoff for fucking sure. Tell me what to say. I will read that script for you. Okay?
I'll give you the betting line.
Yeah, exactly. We'll give you those betting lines. We'll do whatever you need us to do. Just don't make me go back to plumbing. Thank you. Okay, next up, we are running out of time here quickly on this Father's Day episode, the Roberto Clemente edition of Long Toss here. But next up on our Guess the Total Salary, this one was hard to do because salaries were not tracked nearly as closely this long ago for Ken Griffey Sr. I was not able to find his total career earnings, so instead we're going to do Ken Griffey Jr., career total earnings for Ken Griffey Jr., the kid. Garth, we're going to start with you.
Oh, man, he made a pile of money. I'm going to say 130.
130 for the kid. All right, Pat, you're up next.
147 million.
147. Joel.
160.
160 from Joel. That means Rick, you're up next.
161.
161.
Rick, you're up
next. All right, and Jen. 85?
152. 152. Yeah, 85. 152.
152. All right. Total career earnings for Ken Griffey Jr., 151. Jen, you just missed it. Which means closest without going over was Pat at 147. Pat, it's a shame you didn't bring a topic today. All right.
You didn't bring a topic today. Next time, I suppose.
All right. So next closest then would be Joel at 160. Joel, floor is yours.
I just wanted to talk about the interesting playoff situation that this creates now with the expanded wild card situation. And you have a situation the American League where you may have 4 of 6 playoff teams coming out of the AL East. Boston's on fire. Tampa Bay's still a good team. Us, New York Yankees. So it's like 66% of your postseason participants are out of the AL East. Next year, with the more equal schedule that's coming along.
Sorry, let me stop you there. Someone has their stream unmuted, and I'm getting a wicked echo. So if everybody just wants to double check that their stream is muted, I'm hearing double of Joel. Thank you. Joel, continue. Sorry.
Okay. No. Is it good now?
I think so.
I still kind of hear a double. Anyways, I'm just saying it's an interesting situation with, like I said, a lot of your postseason teams being from the AL East, and it could continue on, especially with Baltimore becoming a better team. Is that good for baseball that so much of the postseason can be AL East or any one division?
It is if it's the AL East. I mean, you have Toronto, Boston, and New York.
Right? Is Major League Baseball playoffs now just going to be the AL East versus the National League?
If MLB had its way, yeah.
Yeah.
It's good for them.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think teams will stop playing once they realize they have a spot? And you run that risk of just when they know they're going to make it. Like if you're the Yankees, you've already got a playoff spot, barring a historic collapse. You might see teams not try as hard through the rest of the season. But I mean, I don't know if that's bad. I mean, market value wise.
I mean, that's a good point as far as teams taking their foot off the gas. Maybe a team at the top. I mean, we see it in football, right? Guys get to rest on week 17 if they've already locked up that first round bye or whatever the case may be. It is kind of a crazy thought, though. We do have a comment from the YouTube. This is from the start of the show from Dulcimerist. My big question for everyone is, which would you rather see your team do? Be hot at the start of the season, like the Yankees, or be hot at the end of the season going into the postseason, aka the Blue Jays last year? I know we did fall just short, but I mean, that's the risk you run when you take your foot off the gas as a team. I mean, that was the big argument against expanded playoffs from the Players Union, right? Was that with more teams making the playoffs, less teams are going to be worried about fighting tooth and nail for that last playoff spot. I never understood that argument. I think it is the opposite is true. I think more teams have a chance. I mean, we're going to see it at this trade deadline, right? There's going to be more buyers than ever before. I don't know. Okay, well, if there's nothing else to add on that thought about the playoffs, we do have one last round of Guess the Career Total Earnings. And this one, similar to Ken Griffey Sr., Barry Bonds' dad was also hard to find career total earnings on for Bobby Bonds. But we're going to do Barry Bonds' career total earnings. So, Pat, we're going to start with you. But before we do, who have we missed? Have we done everybody's topic already then today? Okay, well then let's just skip this round. We'll just skip this round and we're going to get to our MLB Home Run Derby recommendations and we're going to wrap the show up there. So, I teased it off at the start of the show, but we, all six of us, are going to submit our Home Run Derby nominees.
For Bonds.
Pat, I think there's something going on with your audio. You're coming in late and with an echo.
I'm not sure why that is. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. Okay, so Home Run Derby nominees, they do not need to be a 4-4 split between the AL and the NL. So this is just the 8 folks that you want to see in this year's Home Run Derby. I'm going to start naming names and just let me know where we differ. Okay, so, because I feel like the first few we might all have. Aaron Judge. Just give me like a thumbs up if you agree, Aaron Judge. Okay, very good. 25 home runs for Aaron Judge so far. Next we got Vlad Jr. 17 home runs. Okay. This one, I'm not sure. I know Joel's going to agree with this one. Shohei Ohtani. Baseball wants to see him hitting home runs, right?
I would love to see Shohei Ohtani hitting home runs, but also being the guy who tosses to Mike Trout in the home run.
Yeah,
Love it.
That's what I want.
I love it.
great idea.
Love that idea.
But Trout has to toss to him.
Why not?
Ohtani tossing to himself.
Oh, there you go. Just throwing it right up to himself. All right. Next one on the list then, Mike Trout. We all want Mike Trout at the Home Run Derby. No from Rick?
I don't have him on my list.
Okay. Mike Trout, second in baseball right now with 21 home runs. After that, we have Pete Alonso, 2-time defending home run champion. We all want to see him there. Okay.
Yep.
This is where I start to think maybe we start to differ. For me, Mookie Betts, LA Dodger. LA is hosting the Home Run Derby. I want to see Mookie Betts in that Home Run Derby. A lot of thumbs down. Okay, so who do we have instead of Mookie Betts? Joel, let's start with you.
I had Bryce.
Bryce, the face punch Harper. Okay, couple agrees with Bryce Harper there. Jen, do you have someone else?
Yeah, I thought Bryce Harper. Betts is headed to the injured list, just FYI.
Off to the IL. Okay.
I don't know if you knew that, but
Did not know that. You don't need to be healthy to play in the Home Run Derby. Look at Vladdy in 2019.
He has cracked ribs.
Yeah.
Probably need your ribs to swing.
Whatever.
Probably.
Bring those juice balls back. Okay. Next up, I've got Juan Soto.
Yeah.
Joel's on the fence. Rick's with me. Pat's with me. A couple thumbs down. Who do we have instead of Juan Soto?
Acuna.
Okay. Jen?
Mm-hmm.
Jose Ramirez.
That's a good choice. Garth, what about you?
Well, I got three guys that no one's mentioned yet.
Yep.
I got Stanton. Like home run derby, I don't care
I
about
got
numbers.
Stanton as well.
Yeah,
I
Stanton
don't
was
care.
my
I don't
last
care
pick.
about numbers. I care about I want to see 520 feet.
Freak
I want
athletes.
bombs.
Okay.
So I got Stanton, Jordan, Alvarez, Kyle Schwarber.
I got him too.
Schwarber hits nukes. That's what I want to
That
see.
time, just so you know.
What's that? Oh,
That
was
wasn't
it you?
me that time with the call.
Yeah,
No,
like
that was me. That was
like
on me.
I want the 8 guys that hit the furthest baseballs. That's who I want.
I have 2 that are missing. I have Buxton. Nobody's mentioned Buxton yet. So I think he would be a good one. In Soler, if you're talking about monster home runs,
Oh.
Soler can be added to that list.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. This is more. So when I put together my list, like I kind of had like serious choices, and then I kind of had like not so serious choices.
Okay.
But I just thought, even though it might potentially actually kill him, if we're gonna do a farewell tour, Albert Pujols.
That would be cool.
Man, he can still turn on him.
You know what? How
He's on my
cool
list
would
as
that
well.
be? You know, to have him out there and have it be kind of this big celebration and fun, and I don't know. I put him on my list just for what that would mean.
If we're gonna have Pujols in the home run derby, can we juice the balls and can we cork the bat? Because I want to see Albert Pujols putting up stupid numbers, even if they're fake.
Use aluminum bats.
Aluminum bats, yeah. Full composite bat for Albert Pujols. Love it. All right. I also had Jordan Alvarez as a maybe, and then potentially Jock Peterson as a fringe 8th guy, maybe an injury replacement.
Can Pham throw to him?
Throw to him, exactly. And then he gets to throw to Pham. Absolutely. All right. Well, that is about it for this episode of The Long Toss. So let's say goodbye to everyone. Rick, it was nice to see you again. What are you working on? How did your sunglasses spot go?
They're still reviewing it. I had to send something to them. It's really weird. I looked up the Q&A from it, and it should have been reviewed within 24 hours, but it's been a week, and they still are in review. TikTok's reviewing it, so I sent them something. Hopefully I'll hear something back by the next time I'm on the podcast,
They
hopefully.
were just like, this ad is too good. This has to be illegal. There's got to be something.
Yeah.
Must have broke some rule. All right.
Joe, what did you think? I mean, was it that good?
Well, I thought it was a sweet little ad. Oh, you did a really good job.
You're the
I would
movie
like
guy.
to
So
show it
how
at
was
some
Rick's
point.
acting?
I'll have to share it with you guys at some point. Either it'll give you a good laugh, or you'll just be like,
No, I look forward to it. It's good. It'll be interesting. All right, Joel, your movie's almost done. I know I say this every week for the last month and a half, but it's getting closer.
Well, yeah.
What's it called?
Photography,
Top Gun
right?
3?
Yes, it is. I got it. They gave it to me. They took it away from Christopher McQuarrie, who's written every Tom Cruise movie for the last decade. No, that's not what it's called. No, but it's shooting has wrapped, so it's all into post-production now, which is an easier part to do because setting up those shoots is insane, especially in Los Angeles, where you need to have you have to get the COVID protocols all done, and then you have to get licensing for every time you go outside and shoot. You can't, it's not shooting like in Canada. You just go out, turn your camera on. Literally every street you go down in Los Angeles, you need to get the paperwork for filming outside there. So it's a hell of an ordeal, but it's wrapped. Shooting is wrapped, and now it's just chopping episodes and the entire thing together.
Very, very excited for that. Garth, nice to see you as always.
Thanks for having me.
Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm usually there harassing Yankee fans, and you can also find me link in my Twitter bio for my Medium page, where I put out a weekly-ish article. My latest is obviously about how I felt about how the owners of The Athletic are kind of handcuffing their journalists. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Very good.
Always
Nice
good. Always fun to be here.
Have you back soon. Pat McDonald, first time, hopefully not last time. It was nice to talk to you.
Yeah. It was a long internet connection. Sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you. You're on a bit of a delay. We'll just work on that internet connection for next time.
Yeah, I think
Otherwise,
things were a little choppy, but no, thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun talking with all you guys, and girl, of course. I can be found on Twitter at Pat MacDonald, PatMacDonald. I'll be getting back into stand up in the coming. And I used to host a podcast about parenthood called Over My Dad Body. Had like Tommy Chong, Sam Roberts on, Pat Henkin, a whole bunch of people. It was a lot of fun.
awesome. Okay, well, we'll work out that internet connection for next time. That's too bad. It held up for most of the show, but the last half hour it seemed to go sideways. So, Jen,
Feel free.
Internet connection.
Yes, it did.
that's all right. Jen, we'll end things with you. Nice to see you as always. Anything else going on? Where can people find you?
Hopefully I'll have something concrete going on very, very shortly. But in the meantime, people can find me at baseball_Jen. And that is Jen with 2 N's.
Very good. And we have a one last goodbye from the YouTube chat. Says Matt Hogg goes party on Garth. So we'll leave it at that. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you've made it to the 2 hour mark, please leave a comment, a like, share it on Facebook, Reddit, wherever you may share your stuff. Okay. And we'll see you all on the next one. Cheers.